Welcome to This Week from the Principal's Desk, a podcast about Lutheran schools and their leadership. This podcast is hosted by two Lutheran school leaders. My name is Rob Lunak, and I'm the superintendent of Lutheran neighborhood schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And my co-host, Mike Sheeman, he's off tonight, but don't worry, we have a great episode today. Tonight on the podcast, we have Miguel Melchor. He's the 6th grade math and science teacher at Clinton Elementary in Chicago, Illinois. And Miguel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rob, for having me in your podcast today.
Yeah, happy to do it. I know we got connected over email, and I've been looking forward to this one. I think that we've had this one on the books for 3 or 4 weeks here, but it's exciting to put a name to a face and get to talk to you. Now, you're doing some really exciting things in your classroom, from what I hear. But before we get there, and we will get there, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you and your journey into education?
So I was born and raised in the city of Chicago. My parents immigrated from Mexico in the 1980s, and they always instilled this love and passion for education because they've never had the same opportunities when they were growing up. So they wanted me, my brother, to take advantage of going to school, pursuing college education, because they believed that it was the great equalizer. And for students, especially students of color like me, um, but I got into teaching once I became a Golden Apple Scholar in 2010. And the Golden Apple Foundation, what they do, they dedicate and nurturing future educators throughout their college years. They provide financial assistance, mentorship, and summer internships. So I immerse myself in educational settings, refining my skills and nurturing my passion for teaching. So once I graduated, I felt I was prepared because I provided with a mentor and started teaching fourth grade and just going through the whole experience of teaching in a school where I grew up near. So it's been very fulfilling for me to become now a teacher for now. It's been 10 years already, teaching fourth grade for 7 and now currently teaching 3 years in sixth grade.
Well, I love to hear that. You have such it's such an interesting story, even just a little bit I've heard. You have this passion for education. You have a family that kind of instilled that in you. And now you get to live that out every day and teach kids in Chicago near where you grow up. That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit about how did you get into the grade levels, the subjects that you're in? Because that's never an easy decision, right? You go, I want to be a teacher, and that's the easy decision. But then it's like, okay, what specialization, what subject, where do I want to work? How did you come to those decisions?
So when I started with the Golden Apple Foundation, they provide several opportunities of exploration. So I was in the middle school classrooms, I was in the primary grades, I was intermediate grades. And then once I started through the program for 4 years and I started my student teaching, I was placed in a fourth grade classroom with an amazing mentor. And she taught me so much about teaching and about inspiring students and how to plan. And I became in love with the fourth grade level. So that's how I became a fourth grade teacher when I started teaching at Clinton. And I never thought of myself as a middle school teacher. Like I respect the work that they do. My favorite grade was I was seventh grade, but I never saw myself as a middle school teacher. I felt more that I was more of a intermediate grades teacher. But my principal, she said that I was very talented in math, and I love teaching. I love doing math when I was in school myself. So I became passionate in teaching math in school. Um, because it provided affordances for me in the classroom, and I felt talented and inspired by doing mathematics. And she decided 3 years ago, you're going to be teaching sixth grade. And I just took a leap of faith. I did it. I implemented this amazing model of personalized learning, and it's taken off from there. Now I'm enjoying teaching sixth grade currently. It's been a ride. It's been a positive experience.
That's good to hear. It's always interesting how people sometimes see in us what we don't see in ourselves, and we go, "No, I could never do that. I could never do that." And they're like, "Well, actually, I think you'd be great." And they kind of, mama bird push us out of the nest a little bit into our comfort zone and let us fly. Well, that's fantastic. Now, you just mentioned this kind of individualized, personalized learning model. Why don't you explain exactly what that is? Because that's something that gets thrown around a lot. And so, how are you implementing that in your class?
So with our personalized model framework that we use at our school, we focus on providing access and equity to our students by making sure that we're understanding their individual needs and strengths and what are the areas of need. So we look a lot into their prior experiences with school and how they engage with school. Like what are the learner preferences? Like what do they like to engage with, what sort of activities they like to do. So really focusing on their individual needs. And then as the teachers, we planned the learning plans. How can we and that's where the personalization comes, like differentiating the content for them, for the students. So for the past 3 years, I've been implementing a blended self-paced mastery-based learning classroom. And I've seen just enormous growth in the students, where students are engaging, they have taken ownership of the content themselves, and I'm able to work with students individually and also in small groups. And that's increased their the habits of mind, like the way they think about school, like they become even more excited and motivated because they're accessing content that they can do themselves and also collaborate with their peers.
That sounds really neat. Oh, let's dive into that a little bit. Let's break that down. So, traditional math classroom, kids show up. How many kids you got in a class generally?
30. I
Okay,
have 30.
30 kids show up, and you say, "Hey guys, today we're doing chapter 2, lesson 1. Everyone open to page 19 in your textbook," and you go through and you do your lesson and you have your slides. Okay, everyone work on 1 through 11 odd at the end of the class, right? Homework, whatever you don't finish. Traditional model. And then your model, kids had it's blended, there's individualized elements. Walk me through what that looks like from kids walk in when that class starts to when that class ends.
So when they walk in, they do their check-in, which is a form that they complete where they tell me how they're feeling that day. What is their, what are they working on for the day? And we create a goal based on the learning plan, based on the tracker, they create a goal for themselves. And from that goal, students begin working through their learning plan, which I call the grid. And each grid, it's there's a standard and there's four main lessons that they have to complete for the week. So each lesson has an instructional video, there's practice that they can do with a peer individually or with me in the small group. And then at the end, they take a mastery check. And that mastery check is their final assessment for that lesson. Um, so each students will look at there's a tracker as well that they look through. They have their checklist, which is one form of a tracker, but also there's like a whole classroom tracker that they have to update daily based on their mastery check. So if students master the lesson for the day, they're allowed to move on to the next lesson. If students have not mastered the lesson for that day or for that particular wherever they are in their grid, they have to go back and revise and reassess. And the reassessment can happen in different ways depending on their preference. And I give them the choice, like you can either do a my version 2 of the assessment, or you and I can work through an oral assessment. So they get the choice of how they want to assess for the day or for the lesson before they can move on. And each student has access to their learning plan, their grid, through Google Classroom. And they work through their learning plan, and they're allowed to pick their seat where they want to work. They can collaborate, they can choose their partners, they can choose to work in a small group with me, with my student teacher that I have in the class. And that's how the grid works as of now in the classroom.
Now that grid, we talk about differentiation a lot in education, and we know as teachers we're supposed to do it, and we hear that from the high level, here's your class on it. But the reality is you get into the average sixth grade classroom and you could have 4 grade levels represented in ability in that room. And so teachers hear this and they go, okay, I already have all of these different levels I got to get to. Why in the world would I let a kid move faster? Because that's just another level that I've now just added.
Mhm.
So you obviously let kids do that, and that's fantastic to hear. How quickly could a kid work through that grid if they wanted? Could a kid do 2 or 3 lessons in a day if they got the content and were motivated to do that?
Yes. So I have students who are working at a very advanced level. So I have students who could probably finish 2 lessons in a day. And then I have students who might finish like half the lesson for the day. So it's really depends on the students. They are the drivers of the class. They are the ones that decide how fast they want to move. And of course I have deadlines. Like I still have deadlines on the class. I still have a set date of when we have to finish our unit, but students are allowed to move. They can, if they, and I don't give homework. That's something new that I don't give homework anymore. So now students, instead of, if they don't finish something in the class or they're falling or they need to catch up, they can always work at home. They can watch an instruction video at home. do the practice at home, and they come back with me and check in with me, and we can work in small group or individually before they take the mastery check, because they can only do the mastery check at school in the classroom.
Okay. Now I'm hearing that the students have a lot of ownership in this, but I'm also hearing that it sounds like a lot of work on your end, right? It sounds like a lot of work, but it also sounds very untraditional. It's not like you've put 2 hours into a lesson plan. It sounds like every day when you show up, you don't exactly know what you're going to get. And then how do you work through that? Why don't you walk us through that for somebody who, like me, totally new to the idea? I love what I'm hearing, but how does that work from a teacher's side?
So from the teacher side, each unit we plan, it takes a month of work. So my team and I, we're a team of three people. So Alana and Ashley, we put a lot of work into our units, and we each unit we spent we plan 1 month in advance. So we plan the videos, we plan the guided notes, all the assessments, all the final assessments, all based on the standards. So we do all the planning 1 month in advance. In the classroom, once we implement, we rely a lot on the tracker, which is an Excel sheet that students update with an X, and it creates these groupings based on the lesson where students are. And based on those groupings, that is how I plan for my small group lessons, based on where they are in the grid. So I may have students like currently right now, we're working on rates and percentages. I may have kids working on level one, which is finding the rate, finding rates. And I can also have kids working on level three, which is now dealing with percentages. So it all depends on where they are in their tracker and in their grid that I plan my lessons, and I plan what I plan to do that day, which is why the check-in form is so important for me, because I always look at it the moment they fill it out, I'm looking through like, okay, what are the kids working on? Okay, so and so's working on the video, so and so's working on the practice. These kids are working on, they need help on the mini lesson. I looked at their assessments, they need help. Now they need some small group instruction before they can move on to the next lesson. So it really depends. I rely heavily on the tracker, and they update it, and that is how I plan for the day based on the check-in form and their tracker, and also based on their own needs. I think now at this point, because they've taken so much ownership of the class, they let me know, Mr. Melchor, I need help with this specific lesson. I need help of finding the percent using having the fraction. Can you help me? And so they'll come up to me and they'll let me know their needs. So now they're very vocal, and they're not afraid to ask questions or to let me know that they're struggling, or when they feel successful, they let me know.
I love that ownership that it sounds like they're getting. There's that old teacher joke that you only need to be one lesson ahead of the kids, and you can't be. You really have to know it because you don't know exactly where they're going to be. So that's a testament, I think, to you and your team and your comfort level with the content, which is great. Now, at the beginning, I'm sure there were some stumbling blocks, right? Taking a class that maybe did it the traditional way and saying, "Hey guys, actually, we're going to put a lot of the learning back on you. You have to be independent. You have to let us know when you don't know something because no one's going to come find it for you and no one's going to ask the question for you." Walk me through that, how they went from maybe in the traditional model to into this model. How the students transition, and maybe what were some of the stumbling blocks along the way?
So when we started 3 years ago with this whole personalized learning model, we did have the stumble. So for example, when we were asking students to revise their work and to reassess, students were not used to being asked to do it again or to receive that feedback, because they were so used to of completing the lesson and moving on, and never really knowing what they've learned, if they mastered it or not. It was really just compliance. Like, I did the work, I'm done, I'm moving on. But with our class, we focus a lot on the mastery portion, which is very important, where students have to demonstrate mastery. And if you don't demonstrate mastery, you have to go back and revise, either through rewatching the video, working through additional practice, working with me or my student teacher through a small group, or working with a peer. And that was at the beginning, that was the major roadblock, where students were hesitant. They did not want to go back. They were done. Like, they wanted to move on. And in art class, we were like, no, you cannot move on. You have to master this before you can move on to the next lesson, because it's all based on levels. Like, if you don't master this concept now, it's going to be much harder for you as you move along through the learning plan. So that was at the beginning, that was the major, I will say the major stumble. And as a teacher, trying to keep up with the students, because we had some students working, they were always ahead, they were always just moving along, and we were the teachers and my team and I, Alana and Ashley, we were just trying to keep up with them. We were planning all the lessons, all the videos, getting everything organized, linked, posted for the kids that were ready so advanced. So at the beginning, that was the struggle, but now this is our third year and all of our curriculum is finished. Like we have all the instructional videos, we have all the guided notes, the assessments are ready. It's all there for the students. And now the team and I, we're just focusing on revising ourselves. How can we make it better? How can we make this video better, this content better? How can we make the assessment better? How can we giving students more options, more activities, more choices that they can pick from? I think that's our focus now as we're navigating through self-pacing.
Now, this reminds me a lot of Sal Khan's book, the One World Schoolhouse. He talks a lot about this mastery learning, and I think he uses Swiss cheese as the analogy. Like, if you get a hole, you may never fill it, and you're just going to end up with an education full of holes because you didn't master a content. And it sounds like you guys are doing a similar approach. Now, talk to me a little bit about these videos. You guys are making these, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay, so you guys
yes.
are making videos, making guided notes. Walk me through creating all that. This sounds like a huge undertaking in addition to teaching.
Right. It is a huge undertaking, but it's rewarding. We create all of our curriculum based on the standards. So we 3 years ago and currently now we met and we discuss our sixth grade standards. Like what do they need to know? So we broke each standard down based on the skills and the content the kids needed to know, and we created assessments from there, like first. Once we create the assessments, we went into building the activities that would align with each of the objectives based on the standard. And that is how we created our videos. So we were first we use the we create first the guided notes, and then from there we create the videos. And I use PowerPoint to create my videos, and I know Alan and Ashley, they use Explain Everything to create their own. And something that we try to do is that we try to divide the task. Like I'll take a unit, I'll create the videos, and Alana and Ashley, they'll create their own videos, and we can share them amongst our students. So students get to hear from the three of us in the class. They know that we are a team together and they can access our content and they can hear from the three teachers, not just me, but it's two other individuals that they're also are learning from. And then I can focus on the small groups and doing whole group activities in the classroom.
I love this idea that you're making these new things and tweaking them as you go. I would love to see some of these videos. Is this I don't know, is this behind some Chicago copyright I'm not allowed to look at, or would you be able to share some of these?
We'll be able to share some of these videos. I can share some of my grids, some of the work that we do in the class. And I know like it sounds like a huge undertaking, but it with the MCP model, they did such an amazing job of training the teachers and of taking our curriculum and technology and just embedding it together.
Mhm.
They walk you through like how to create the videos, how to upload to Edpuzzle. They walk you through the entire process of how to create all your materials through their MCP course.
Okay. Well, it's good they don't just throw it at you and say, "Hey, make something." Right? It's nice to have
No,
that support. Now, you teach other classes too. So, the science classes you teach, are they set up this way, or are they more the traditional model?
at the moment they're more of these traditional model. Like we spent focusing on the math first,
Mhm.
building the math curriculum, the math program, and then we are working on the science program for next year.
This newer student-centered, student-responsible model and the traditional kind of teacher in front model, which one's your
Yes.
favorite?
I prefer the personalized learning model because kids and the reason why I picked the personalized learning is because the kids enjoy it more.
Mhm.
They have that ownership piece. They are highly motivated. They enjoy being able to pick and choose their partners and collaborate, which is essential for them to learn. I mean, they really do enjoy the personalized learning model. Like one thing that that I always remember from a student is from the students from last year. They said, "I liked your class because you respected me as a learner and as an individual." And when this particular student said that quote, a lot of the other students in the class, they all were like, yes, we agree, because they do feel through the personalized learning model, they do feel supported and they do feel appropriately challenged. Like they know that they're engaging in a productive struggle and they're not going to be shamed for if they need more time to catch up, or if they're working ahead, they know they're going to have material ready for them. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I like the way you phrase that, productive struggle, because I think in the traditional model, we don't give the kids the room for that. You're either with us or you're slowing everybody down, or you're the bored kid who is either too far behind or too far ahead to really pay attention. And let's talk about that in particular for a minute, because I'm sure there are teachers or principals listening going, this sounds great and it sounds like it's totally working for Miguel, but what about the kid that shows up and doesn't want to do anything? How do you motivate them to say, okay, yeah, I care about my work now and I want to do it? What do you do with a student like that? Because you got 30 kids. You've had to have one kid that's like, listen, I'm not doing any of your math. And, just because you're not teaching anymore doesn't mean I'm going to do more of it. How do you get past that?
I think the beauty of the self-paced model of personalized learning is that I get to build relationships early on in the school year. And I think that's super important. I think that's helped me now, and I think that's been um with this model, it's helped me. It's freed me up to work with students in small groups, but also to reach those students that maybe feel disengaged with school and try to get to know them through the learner profile, through conversations. And at the beginning of the school year, we built something called the Unit Zero, where we teach students the procedures and the routines of a self-paced classroom, but we also embedded that relationship piece where we ask for the mastery checks. For example, we ask students to come up to us and to answer this question. Like, will come up to us for a student teacher interview. And that is our time to build relationships. And the kids know based like that I'm more free to support them and they feel more inclined to do the work. And this school year, I haven't had that one kid who doesn't want to do any work. If anything, they're hungry for more. Like they come in and they are at it. It creates like it's like through the tracker, it's created almost like competitive nature in the class, but it's not toxic. Like they're still competing, but they're not being jerks about it. Like they're still showing support, and if they see a friend who may be struggling, they go up to them like, "Hey, do you need help with anything? Can I help you with something? Can I help you get you ahead? I can help you." And it's been phenomenal. The kids are now supporting each other in that way, in that capacity.
Now that's really interesting, because I think at the beginning of this, it sounded like there was less time. But listening to you, it sounds like there's actually more time for that relationship building, both with you and the students and them with their peers, because so much of it is independent, where, they have time to take their time. It sounds like if a kid wants to work with another kid and they get a little sidetracked, that's probably okay in your model a little bit. They obviously got to get back on task, but a little bit of that is, there's probably room for that. And that helps build relationships, that helps build camaraderie. And I like what you said, that there's not that toxic competition, because I think when we work through content at the traditional pace, there are winners and losers. You're with it or you're not. And we never frame it that way. We never frame it that
Mhm.
way, but the kids recognize it as such. And I think when you've broken it out into all these different levels, you've turned it into a leaderboard in a sense, and made it fun
Yes.
for the kids, where they're not competing against anybody else. It's their high score that they're going for. And they recognize their peers as people they can learn from, and then on the other end as people they can support. So that's really commendable that you've done that.
Yes, it's highly collaborative because now in the class with this model, like I'm not the knowledge holder that knows everything, because now I have other students in the class who also have that knowledge and they can also share that knowledge with their peers. So I do have like my teacher assistants in the class, the TAs, they do help with some of their peers, like they'll work with their buddy, or I even had kids who are now leading a small group themselves. So it's not only individual, it's very collaborative. Like yes, everyone's doing like there has their own learning plan, they have their own tracker, but it's also collaborative. And the kids have more time to collaborate, especially for students who are learning a second language. They need to be able to practice that language and be able to engage in that collaboration with their peers.
Now, Miguel, if somebody's listening and they're all in, they say, "Okay, I love it. I want to do it." They probably don't have the time right now in March to change over everything they're doing. What would be that kind of step zero for them if they wanted to start exploring this in their class?
I would start by looking at the Modern Classrooms Project course. It's a free course that they can go online and they can Google it. It's a free course, the Modern Classrooms Project. And through that course, it walks them through all the modules of how to create a mastery check, how to implement blended learning, how to create the videos, how to create those self-paced structures, the learning environment, how you're setting up the classroom. I think that would be a step one. And they do have a virtual mentorship where they do get to work with a mentor and they get to create materials and share with their mentor and be able to create those materials and get that feedback before they start implementing. Because they've done, the Modern Classrooms Project has done an amazing job of, um, like I said before, of taking curriculum, like em embedding it with technology. And I think that's rare for a lot of people because it's usually when you go to PDs, you either learn about technology in isolation and then here's your curriculum. But with the Modern Classrooms project, they were able to combine both to make it into this whole to really change and transform your classroom environment.
I really like that. I'll have to find that, and then I'll include a link to that in the description for this episode, along with anything you'll send me, Miguel. I will include all of it. And then,
Okay,
is it okay if I include contact information for you? If somebody says, "Hey, listen to the episode, want to talk to Miguel, have to pick his brain about it." Are you okay with that?
I'll be okay. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to ask, right? Perfect. Thank you. There, I could talk to you for several hours about this, I think. But the podcast does need to end somewhere, so I'll try to wrap it up here as we go. What is what is the thing you're most excited about looking forward? You've seen some growth over the 3 years here. Where's the next horizon for you guys with this classroom model?
I think we're still tweaking and we're still learning. And about the beauty of this model is that it's very flexible and we feel energized and we feel inspired to continue to support our students individually, academically, but also their social emotional needs. And we just feel very inspired as teachers, especially now during these times where teaching is hard. It's a hard profession, but using this model, we feel energized and we feel that we are meeting the needs of our students and that we are able to also have that balance where we also want to feel joy ourselves as teachers and we're spreading that joy to our students. And I think when you walk into our classrooms, you will see the engagement, you will see the motivation, you will see just the passion that we feel for teaching, and you will see it in the students as well. So we're still at it and we're still working hard to achieve more and continue to learn more ourselves.
That's fantastic. I love that you're finding joy in what you're doing. I love that you acknowledge that teaching's hard. It is. It is probably one of the hardest jobs out there. And if anybody thinks it's not, hey, there are openings. You can go teach. You can find out for
Right.
yourself if you think it's easy. I love that you guys are building in those parts of teaching that I think we lost for a little bit, honestly. People should be joyous in their job and we should have energy and excitement. And I I still remember high school study hall, and I had the teacher nobody wanted who like sat there reading the paper, and it was study hall, great, but like weren't doing anything.
Right.
And I know they taught that same way too. Like, hey guys, we're gonna watch a video. I'm gonna read a book, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Don't do that.
Right.
So it's nice to hear that you guys are reclaiming some of that joy and that passion for education. So I love everything you guys are doing. I just want to commend you for the work and for trying these new things and for your team and the kids who are giving it the go. It's all just fantastic. So I want to thank you for spending the time talking with us today. And anything before we close?
No, thank you so much for opening your space to share my story, but really it's our story for Clinton School. And thank you so much.
Yeah, hey, my pleasure. Anytime you want to get back on the podcast, let me know. If you got any colleagues or peers that want to jump on, I'm happy to host them. If they're as good as you, it'd be a pleasure to talk to them.
No, thank you so much. Anybody from my school will be amazing who's doing the model. And just one last thing, I want to give a shout out to my admin, at our school admin. They're phenomenal. And the reason why this is working is because we have fantastic admin, Miss Delgado, Mr. Ing, and Mr. Laszlo. They are extremely supportive. And the teachers trying these new ideas and strategies and use them in the class.
Well, that's fantastic. Definitely commendable. I definitely awesome to include that. Well, let me pray for you and then we'll get going
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for Miguel and for his passion, his energy, his knowledge, and just the joy he brings to teaching every day. Thank you for the students that he serves and for the colleagues that he serves with. Please continue to bless them and point them to this awesome, bright, joyous future that you're creating there at Clinton Elementary. In your son's name we pray. Amen. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of From the Principal's Desk. If you found it helpful, please share it with someone else that can help. If you found it entertaining, please leave a rating or a review. And if you want to hear more episodes like this, subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a good week.